Okay. Hi, folks. We are continuing with this reading of R.K. Narayan's Swami and Friends. And we are at chapter 18, The Return. It was 3:30 on Sunday afternoon. The match between the MCC and YMU was still in progress. The YMU had won the toss and were all out for 86 at 2 o'clock. The captain's was the top score, 32. The MCC had none to bowl him out. And he stood there like an automaton, hitting right and left, tiring out all the bowlers. He kept on for hours, and the next batsman was as formidable, though not a scorer. He exhausted the MCC of the little strength that was left, and Rajam felt keenly the lack of a clever bowler. After the interval, the game started again at 2:30, and for the hour that MCC batted, the score stood at the unimpressive figure of 8 with 3 out in quick succession. Rajam and Mani had not batted. Rajam watched the game with the blackest heart and cursed heartily everybody concerned. The match would positively close at 5:30, just 2 hours more, and would the remaining 8 make up the at least 78 and draw the match. It was a remote possibility. In his despair, he felt that at least 6 more would follow suit without raising the score to 20. And then he and Mani would be left, and he had a wild, momentary hope that each might be able to give 40 with a few judicious sixers and boundaries. He was squatting along with his players on the ground in the shade of the compound wall. Raju, a minute, come here, came a voice from above. Rajam looked up and saw his father's head over the wall. Father, is it very urgent? It is. I won't detain you for more than a minute. When he hopped over the wall and was at his father's side, he was given a letter. He glanced through it, gave it back to his father, and said casually, "So he is safe and sound. I wonder what he is doing there." He ruminated for a second and turned to go. "I am sending this letter to Swaminathan's father. He is sure to get a car and rush to the place. I shall have to go with him. Would you like to come?" Rajam remained silent for a minute and said emphatically, "No." "Don't you want to see your friend and bring him back?" "I don't care," Rajam said briefly, and joined his friends. He went back to his seat in the shade of the wall. The fourth player was promising. Rajam whispered to Mani, "I say, that boy is not bad. 6 runs already. Good, good. If these fellows make at least 50, we can manage the rest." Rajam nodded an assent, but an unnoticed corner of his mind began to be busy with something other than the match. His father's news had stirred in him a mixture of feelings. He felt an urgent desire to tell Mani that what he had just heard. "Mani, you know Swami," he said, and stopped. He stopped short because he remembered that he was not interested in Swaminathan. Mani sprang up and asked, "What about Swami? What about him? Tell me, Rajam, has he been found?" "I don't know." "Oh, Rajam, you are about to say something about him." "Oh, nothing, I don't care." Swaminathan had a sense of supreme well-being and security. He was flattered by the number of visitors that were coming to see him. His granny and mother were hovering around him ceaselessly, and it was with a sneaking satisfaction that he saw his little brother croon crowing unheeded in the cradle, for once overlooked and abandoned by everybody. Many of his father's friends came to see him and behaved more or less alike. They stared at him with amusement and said how relieved they were to have him back, and asked some stereotyped questions and went away after uttering one or two funny remarks. Father went out with one of his friends. Before going, he said, "Swami, I hope I shall not have to look for you when I come back." Swaminathan was hurt by this remark. He felt it to be cruel and inconsiderate. After his father left, he felt more free to lord over a mixed gathering consisting of mothers and grannies' friends and some old men who were known to the family long before Swaminathan's father was born. Everybody gazed at Swaminathan and uttered loud remarks to his face. Through all this crowd, Swaminathan espied the cook and bestowed a smile on him. Over the babble, the cook uttered some irrelevant, happy remark, which concluded with the hope that now father, mother, granny might resume the practice of taking food. Swaminathan was about to shout something in reply when his attention was diverted by the statement of a widow, who, rolling her eyes and pointing heavenward, said that he alone saved the boy. And who could have foreseen that the forest officer would be there to save the boy from the jaws of the wild beasts? Granny said that she would have to set about fulfilling the great promises of offerings made to the Lord of the seven hills, to whom alone she owed the safe return of the child. Mother had meanwhile disappeared into the kitchen and now came out with a tumbler of hot coffee with plenty of sugar in it and some steaming tiffin in a plate. Swaminathan quickly and with great relish disposed of both. A mixed fragrance, delicate and evocative, came from the kitchen. Swaminathan cast his mind and felt ashamed of himself for his conduct with the forest officer when that harassed gentleman was waiting for a reply from the deputy superintendent of police, which took the form of a taxi drawing up before the traveller's bungalow, disgorging father, mother, Rajam's father, and an inspector of police. What a scene his mother created when she saw him. He had at first feared that Rajam's father and the inspector were going to handcuff him. What a fine man Rajam's father was, and how extraordinarily kind his own father was. So much so that 5 minutes after the meeting, Swaminathan blurted out the whole story from his evasion of drill classes to his disappearance without concealing a single detail. What was there to so funny in his narrative? Everybody laughed uproariously, and mother covered her face with the end of her sari, wiped her eyes at the end of every fit of laughter. This retrospect was spoiled by one memory. He had forgotten to take leave of the forest officer, though that gentleman opened the door of the car and stood near it. Swaminathan's conscience scorched him at the recollection of it. A gulp came to his throat at the thought of the kindly district forest officer looking after the car speeding away from him, thoroughly broken-hearted by the fact that a person whose life he had saved should be so wicked as to go away without saying goodbye. We'll stop at this point because we have some other things to do. Bye.